What is something you learned in therapy? This one is so simple and intuitive. I feel we all know it's true, but it took me a long time to accept. Anger is not a primary emotion, it's a secondary one. Anger is most often the result of unresolved emotional problems or situations. I thought I was an inherently angry person, but over my time in therapy, as I digested my issues and solved them, I became less angry. I found that anger/hate was the manifestation of all my blocked mental state. When you can't find a way to resolve your issues, your energy just overflows and it gets turned into anger. Compare it to how excess calories get turned into body. You ate too much and your body goes, well, I have to do something with this and turn it into. This isn't to say or anger are inherently evil or bad or not useful, just to say I find this is the cause of it. It's good to cry. Anger is almost never solely anger, it usually stems from being hurt, being disappointed, or boundaries being crossed. Not all anger is dysfunctional and anger does serve purpose. I was taught not to be angry, because I had to be rational and calmly talk it out. But there is also a rational way to be angry and I have every right to be and to express that. My therapist taught me to locate that feeling and to express it instead of just repressing it. You are not responsible for your parents as a child/young person. I am really self-aware, and that's not always a helpful thing. It's okay to ask for help. I am a perfectionist, who in order to feel in control and safe, I make 1,000 scenarios in my head, mostly of what may go bad, so I can be ready. For that reason, I overthink, and since I am also very critical of myself, I take my thoughts seriously and I end up hurting myself. Most of these scenarios will never happen, and life has showed me so far that indeed, they never happened and all went well in the end. We don't have to take seriously every single thought we think, and just because we think it, due to anxiety, it doesn't mean it's intuition. However, if you feel that your intuition is alarming you about something, go away. Also, you can stop your thoughts if you want to. When you feel like spiraling into overthinking and hurting yourself, distract yourself with something else. Call a friend, watch a video, clean, it helps for me. Just get out of your mind. It's not easy, and it takes practice. But it is extremely helpful, and takes you away from the misery you're about to inflict to yourself. That it's better to listen to your body. I'm looking for another job/career and that I should listen to the lack of enthusiasm I feel/show when I talk about job opportunities in my field, even when they're objectively interesting and well paid. Other people's opinions are none of my business. Self-care is actually important. Like, really important. It has a huge effect on your overall well-being and can often be at least a temporary solution for dealing with larger problems. You can't take proper care of others if you aren't taking proper care of yourself first. Smiley face. Trust is established slowly in small acts over long periods of time. Intimacy requires trust. If you think about a yellow car all the time, you'll see yellow cars all the time. It's easy to reflect your own behavior on other people. If you judge and label a lot, you'll believe other people do that too. So, you can basically shape your surroundings by thinking a certain way, thus behaving a certain way. It's kind of naive, because you're basically tricking your brain, but we actually trick our brains all the time. That was a very powerful realization for me. I call it the chameleon method. Inadequacy issues often stem from improper boundary setting. That in interactions with men, I should stick to the facts and not overthink situations. Believe what people show me. That I am the most important person in my own life, and if other people are going to put themselves first, I better well do so as well. Context: I have a younger brother with autism, and my parents pandered to his every need and made me do the same to prevent meltdowns, that happened 50% of the time anyway. It really messed with my mind to try to prevent the unpreventable and then being blamed for not doing everything perfectly. 1. It's okay to have emotions, it's what makes us human. 2. An event, a person, for me it was a breakup, can leave a scar, and some scars are bigger than others, but that doesn't mean that you can't go on with your life, scars and all. 3. You can make mistakes in life, that does not make you unworthy or that, because of that, you're not allowed to take up space. My therapist was very straight up about stuff. He's selfish, she's lazy, that's a ridiculous expectation. Being open-minded can go too far. It's actually good to make judgments in your life. It's healthy to recognize poor behavior and to refuse to put up with it. Sometimes that means cutting someone out of your life. If that's not possible, it means setting boundaries or disengaging from people. The thing that triggers you is something unhealed on your end. Or it's a boundary you haven't created yet. Someone mentoring and listening, a therapist, can make you grow as a person after continued sessions. You don't see it at first, and then you start seeing your world with different colored glasses. Geniuses talk to themselves. That it was my choice to let myself be treated the way I was. And that if I didn't pick a line and stick to it, I shouldn't be surprised when my partner walked all over it because I'd taught her that I'd let her. Don't want this to come across as victim blamey to others, this is just my personal experience and epiphany moment. You can abuse a child without ever laying your hands on them. I know this is common sense for most people, but it just never occurred to me that I was abused, because I didn't have the language for it. That was a real turning point for me. Sometimes, when you have a childhood history of not being able to rely on the adults in your life, that detachment can cause you to find attachment in other things, trinkets, animals, etc. in order to create that necessary bond. When those items break or get misplaced, for example, it can be as devastating as losing a loved one. In all reality, it is a loved one. It's okay to mourn and say goodbye to the things you are attached to, even if they are inanimate. I'm pretty awesome. Seriously, my therapist told me that after all the horrible stuff I went through as a child, I managed to survive, become a functional adult, be loved by many people and have a quite cool life. So, well, it's understandable if my mental health glitches sometimes. I'm still awesome, even in the dark moments. My feelings of constant mental/emotional exhaustion come, likely, from a learned defense mechanism as a child. Growing up in an environment where I was always told no or guilt for needing things, I learned at a young age that I had to be observant, walk on eggshells, and ask the right things at the right times to get what I needed, always setting up the ideal circumstances. It led to me being hyper-aware of my surroundings and constantly scrutinizing others' reactions and behavior. Now to unlearn it. Mental illnesses/disorders should explain your actions, not excuse them. Excuse, I don't know why you are so upset with me, you know I have bipolar disorder and can't help doing XYZ sometimes. Explain, hey, I apologize for doing XYZ, sometimes I act irrationally because of my bipolar disorder. It's something I'm working on, and I acknowledge that is an unhealthy/harmful behavior. Conflict makes relationships stronger. That your therapist might roll their eyes at you when you are looking down crying and happen to look back up when they looked away whilst rolling their eyes, and so you look down again really quick so they don't know you saw that. Like, yes ma'am, I do cry a lot, but FFS, I thought this is what therapy was for. I stopped seeing her and am nervous to open up to therapists now, lol. How being the child of an addict/alcoholic can shape your entire being and the major source of one's adult problems and attachment issues within relationships. My sister once said, angry people are just people who were sad for a long time. That's a hard one. I learned I don't like crying/sadness, so I turn it into anger a lot. My old couples therapist taught us the GIFT acronym for anger. G, guilt, I, inferiority, F, fear, T, trauma. I'm currently working on reframing how I view my anger, as I started with this therapist to get my anger under control. After doing more deep dives, he wants to help me reframe how I view it as based on my childhood and the current goings on in my life. Anger is the appropriate reaction, and I shouldn't be putting the responsibility all on me for a healthy and natural reaction to things being done to me or put on me that aren't right. For example, I have a right to be angry and feel my feelings and not feel I need to fix the anger because a blatant wrong was done to me. Like a root cause analysis, but for my emotions. I thought I had an anger problem, turns out I have a family problem and am taking on too much responsibility vs putting it on them where it should go. A secondary emotion. I forgot about this. Thank you for the reminder. Nor when you are an adult. Yes. Along with boundary setting, this is my biggest therapy issue, and I'm in my 40s now. Same here, it makes me extremely self-critical and perfectionistic. My therapist's exact words were, wow, you are very self-aware. It's a curse. Real. My therapist helped me realize that just because I have this very useful tool, doesn't mean it's the tool for everything. Sometimes I need that refined thinking and care, and sometimes you need a hammer. And you aren't gonna progress without it. Now I have a wider range of tools to manage my problems. And I know how to spot what problems require what solutions, and I don't let myself belittle myself in search of improvement. When I went to my new therapist in August, I started out by saying, I know where it all comes from, I make connections all the time, I know what my issues are, but I need ways to mitigate them. I need tools to stop being so anxious, stressed, and self-critical every second of the day. I was so fed up having to rehash things with a new therapist, 2 previous, that I just let it out. I didn't realize this self-awareness was prevalent. I just figured I was to help myself. Like every book is about learning where comes from and making connections, but I already did that. Almost nothing talks about working on it and making changes. That's when I realized I needed a therapist again. Same. There's such a thing as over-intellectualizing things and living too much in the head. A psych taught me to use anchoring techniques to bring myself back into my body and to focus on sensory stimulation, feeling emotions, and writing them out rather than trying to analyze or stuff them down. It's really helped. Same. People told me I was weird and I took it as constructive criticism. Acting natural is still acting and will give off weird vibes, almost like you're just constantly being deceptive. I've unlearned it but am very behind in development of interpersonal skills. I'm a badass otherwise. I have a steady career, buying a house at 22, have 2 fully paid off motorcycles. But only 2 friends and relationships seem unobtainable. This. And also what others are doing is none of my business. Another part of this is that what most people call self-care is actually aftercare. For example, you've been working too hard for a month, taking on more than you can or are being paid for, and you're run down, so you decide to take a full day on the weekend to relax and have a bath and de-stress. That's not self-care. That's aftercare. You're already at the point of breaking, etc. Self-care is about putting practices into place that mean you don't get that stressed out or tired in the first place. So in this case, self-care would be practicing boundaries by saying no to more work. Oh, that's interesting. Would you mind giving me an example? This sounds like a deeply personal revelation. Thank you for sharing, love. That makes me feel a little less crazy face with stuck out tongue and winking eye. This can be scary though. I'm sorry, your therapist sounds like they shouldn't be therapist. Sounds like your therapist needs to take a career break. Perhaps they were rolling their eyes not because you were crying, but because they felt like you had backslid on some progress that she thought you two had made. Regardless, that's a poor display of professionalism, and equally poor communication. You made the right move. Good for you for ending something that could have had toxic repercussions. Please don't stop seeking help, though. There's someone out there who will be a much better fit for you and your needs. And this is the time in our lives when many of our parents are elderly and not as capable as they were, so they can very easily become our responsibility if we're not really careful with maintaining boundaries. My siblings are almost disabling and babying my octogenarian parents, to the point that my parents now do almost nothing for themselves, despite being capable of cooking and cleaning. I don't do as much for them as my siblings because I don't think it's right, either for us kids or my parents, but I feel very judged and that I'm perceived as uncaring. My boundaries are hard to keep in place because of feeling this pressure, but I know if I was to cave in and start cooking and cleaning for them, I would be so resentful and angry. My therapist taught me this phrase: even though I feel underscore 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 underscore, I know that underscore 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 underscore. This helps me process the emotion instead of getting caught up in how it feels in my body, and going down the rabbit hole of overthinking and worrying in an effort to prepare for the hurt. For example, if my partner seems reserved and I'm starting to worry that something is wrong and he just won't tell me, I start thinking of the possibilities. Maybe I'm talking too much, maybe he's changing his mind about me, maybe he's annoyed by something I'm doing. I stop myself and name the emotions, and what I know. Even though I feel worried about my partner and why he is acting this way, I know that it is his responsibility to tell me if something is wrong, and that I don't have to change my behaviors based on someone else's. Changed my life. If you're not setting good personal boundaries, you're likely setting yourself up for failure. I didn't realize how many little things I'd let build up, how many times I should have been able to say no until my therapist asked me to choose at least one thing to say no to every day. Sure, I can grab that when I get a minute. Looks like a quick and easy project. / can wind up being a recipe for burnout and / or feeling like a failure if you fall behind on things, even though they weren't part of your primary duties. I don't want to say no to book club because my friend is so excited for this, but she's having a hard time getting participants. / can wind up putting a lot of pressure on you to keep the club alive, even though it wasn't your idea in the first place. I can tackle the chores on Sunday. I don't need help. / can lead to unspoken expectations, resentment, and making sacrifices of joy and success in other areas of your life. I don't like being the go-to for questions about blank, but I don't want to seem uncooperative. / can somehow wind up leaving you feeling both flattered and inadequate at the same time, pressure to always have the answers, but why can't they find an answer on their own? Is my time perceived as less valuable? I hate when so-and-so stops by unannounced, but they brought me bread and I'd hate them to think of me as ungrateful. / can make you feel bad for not always being ready for social interaction or presenting your home. People don't know how to interact with you as a human unless you tell them. My partner loves putting his arm around my waist, and I hate it when we're walking together because I have big hips that clunk into his. Does that make me inadequate as a girlfriend? No. I love when you do that at home, but could you put your arm around my shoulder when we walk together? I'd feel a lot more comfortable. My boss often tries to hand side projects off to me at work because he trusts me to get them done, but my queue is huge and the EDA is. Does that make me inadequate as an assistant manager? No. It's fine to politely say I'm sorry, but could you please ask someone else if this is a time-critical project? I won't be able to commit time to it for another 4 days.